Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Beneath the Lift Tower. My name's Charles McGillivray and as always I'm joined by Simon Stacey and Jess Keble. We're a fans podcast for fans by fans of Northampton Saints. Before we get going, please remember to follow us on social medias and find us and follow us on all the platforms where you get your podcast from. That way you'll get our content as soon as we release it. And this is actually a special edition of the show and we will be joined later by Manny Iyogun, who is going pretty well at the moment. We'll talk to him about his involvement in the England camp this week, I'm sure. But how are you both doing?
Good, thank you, mate. Bit
Hot.
warm, but loving it.
Yeah, it's a bit hot, yeah. Could be worse. You could be out there playing. Yeah.
I don't know, mate.
Oh,
I've been sat in the bus for the last 4 or 5 days. It was 36 degrees in the cab.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, fair enough.
That was warm.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we talked about an England camp there. I mean, I think the first thing to note is we've been bloody unlucky to lose Mitchell, haven't we? And, you know, he's probably going to be out for the remainder of the season.
Is it just Mitchell, though,
Yeah.
hopefully? Because they haven't released anything else, have they? But, yeah.
No, but then the injury update came out today, and he is the only one on the list.
Okay.
In terms of, he's the only one in the article, I should say, like whether something else comes like down the line. But yeah, he's listed as essentially it's going to be a push for him to get back, and it said there's not that many rounds left, so it feels unlikely. And especially if I know it's a hamstring injury. I know that's what you got before, wasn't it? In the Ireland game, you had to come off. So if it's the same issue, then it's the same hamstring. Then yeah, perhaps it's just one of those that. Yeah, the timing couldn't be worse.
It does beg us to believe why they do such a hard training camp before semi-final weekends. But hey ho.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Dallas was pretty adamant in that interview, which it was reported on that. Like they want to be careful not to call it a hard training session because what's hard and what's not hard or whatever. You can pull if you're just doing some light sprinting, you can pull your hamstring, can't you? So it's luck, it's Sod's law, and the reality is the RFU pay for access to players is fundamental to the sustainability of the rugby clubs. You just have to accept it's going to happen, don't you?
It's what the media have been portraying it as, though, haven't they? They said an extra hard, real tough session. So you can only read what you read. But yeah, I know what you say. It's rugby at the end of the day. It's one of the toughest sports in the world. So you could literally do any injury, playing anything, even in a line-out. You can do so. So you're right. It could happen. Yeah.
And I suppose it would feel a lot worse if we didn't have like McParland on just the absolute form of his life at the moment, like on incredible form. So, it like I said, could be better timing, but could also be a worse situation if we didn't really have someone that could kind of step into those boots. And I think we definitely do have that. Obviously, it's a lot of pressure on the young guy's shoulders, but he's met it so far this season, so I don't have any qualms about him continuing to meet it as we keep going.
Yeah, I mean, I think the scrum half position is always an interesting one because you need two quality operators at 9 because no scrum half plays 80 minutes, and it's such a fundamental position that if you're, a minute to go and the game's on the line, there's a score in it, you can't afford to have someone who's not up to the level in that 9 position. So even if someone's played great for 70 minutes, that 10 minutes is just as important as the rest, So I think we're lucky in the sense that we've got someone who's done so well for the club for such a long period of time, hasn't had all the luck this year, Tom James. I mean, this could be all his luck coming at once, couldn't it? If you look at it like that, it could be the sense that, awful luck for Mitchell, but it could be Tom James has had no luck all year with fitness. Suddenly gets to the end of the season and gets all the luck because someone in front of him has an injury issue. He steps into the breach and has a worldie and kicks a drop goal from halfway line to win us the game. Who knows? But you know what I mean. Like it's swinging roundabouts to some extent, isn't it? Sliding doors moments. It's no good for Mitchell. He's world class. He was just about getting back to where he's been. Maybe he pushed a little harder because there's a few youngsters nipping around his toes. Who knows? But it is what it is. You just have to.
Well,
next person into the breach.
You say that Mr. McParland was in training camp with him, weren't he? So maybe he was pushing him there as well. So you never know. I want you spotting the England side as well, boy.
Yeah. There's a couple of very good youngsters around that 9 spot, isn't there?
Yeah. I guess the positive is that same article that Mitch did say that Tom James was back fit now from injury. So like I said, it's just perfect timing for him, not so perfect, obviously, for Alex. But yeah, I mean, I think it's second or third year in a row, isn't it, where they've someone, not necessarily from our team, but someone in those camps have gotten picked up by some kind of serious injury. And yeah, this year we are the ones, unfortunately, or one of the ones, because there seems to be rumours that there's more than one who's hurt themselves like across the camp. But yeah, it's a shame. But I mean, great generally to have 9 players. We mentioned this, 2 weeks ago when the camp group was announced that to have 9 Saints in there is quite frankly ridiculous. And we are the biggest represented team, which really just tells you sort of where we are right now. And you kind of have to take the good with the bad. Like, it's a really good thing because they're getting recognition because they're playing so well for your team, but then you have to take the bad that those fixtures take them out of the club. I mean, not necessarily this camp, because obviously we had the week with the European fixtures, so it didn't matter too much there. But the bad is you lose them in the Six Nations periods, World Cup periods, etc., and they might get an injury there. But like I said, it's rugby. If it's the same hamstring that was having an issue before, he could have easily done that in our own training setup. So yeah, you just gotta take it where it is. But yeah,
you can't sort of give there's no guarantees around any of this, like you said. Yeah, he got injured playing for England. He could have got injured playing for Saints. Like it's just way it rolls.
Anything, obviously, touching all of the wood that's available in my house, that nobody picks up anything else, towards the end. But yeah, it could have happened genuinely at any time, training, in a match. It's just the way that it goes. And yeah, it continues, I suppose, a run of, we always seem to get key players getting injuries as we get towards the end of the season. But yeah, it just is what it is, I suppose. But I suppose the positive was in that article. I think it said that Langdon, they don't think it will be this week, but he's close. Kundiona's training, Ram is training, Lockett is training. Like, all of them are back into contention, which becomes really important as we, get further in. So overall, a positive picture. Just obviously for one individual player, it's going to suck, isn't it? At this particular time.
Always going to be the case, isn't it? Like, the run of injuries that led into that final last year. So many people missed out, and it's just that's the way this game is, and it is what it is. I mean, you mentioned the club's going well and it's getting recognition. Let's talk about some more positive side of things. Obviously, a lot of awards are announced, nominations are announced this last week, and Saints are well and truly represented at the Prem Awards, aren't they? I mean, one in I think every slot at least. I think to confirm, was it Tolaro and McParland, breakthrough players, DOR, Dowson, community player Mr. TJ Tom Jones, and then Freeman's probably just up for everything. I think it was Prem. You said earlier Prem player and RFU player of the year, isn't it?
Yeah, and RFU player of the year. Yeah, which is I think, and I've got no idea who's going to win. And it's the nominations, I suppose, at this point, that like it is a positive. I can't say that necessarily any of them are going to win in any of their individual categories, but to get shortlisted for things like that is always a great recognition in that sense. And yeah, it just really shows you where you are. I mean Tadaro, the fact that Tadaro's got nominated and he's only going to have played half a season, that's how good that first half was, that he's still in people's running and in their minds, for something like breakthrough. I think probably the fact he got injured probably is not going to help him in that situation, because he hasn't done a full season and others have been able to. But it just shows how well we've been going, the whole year. And like I said, Freeman's in just a class above at the moment, with the way that he's been going this year.
When is it? Do you know when it's announced? Who the winners are?
So the week before the final, maybe.
This was going to be my point. Why would you do a thing like, so you could give the DOR of the season and he might not win the final? It just doesn't make sense to me. So like, just say, hopefully we'll just say, okay, the Bath coach, he wins it, but then Saints win the final. Surely Dowson deserves it.
The thing is, though, I don't think the winning the final is the win. Like, it's not. It's it's over the course of the entire season. Like Dowson deserves that more. I would say out of all of them. But that's what I mean. Out of all of the different awards they've been nominated for, Dowson for me is the obvious one that should definitely win his award, because it's not about winning games entirely, is it? It's about producing culture. It's about producing talent. It's about winning, obviously. But the director of rugby isn't just judged on well, they probably are, but they shouldn't be. But they aren't just judged on do you win the one game at the end of the season, you know?
Yeah,
but you can
honest,
do what I'm saying. Why would you give the director of rugby to somebody that didn't win win the league? I'm just saying, just for a
Because
point of view.
it's not an even playing field, is it? Like, you know,
yeah.
if hypothetically someone took over at Newcastle this season and won the league with them, that's a far greater achievement than doing it with Bath. Like, you get the same trophy at the end of the year, but it's not the same achievement, is it?
It also, I suppose, it depends. Like, if you take like I don't know, like Sarries is maybe the best example. I think they're going to sneak into that 4th spot at the end. I think they're going to get it, but like most of their season hasn't been amazing. But like, there's every chance. Obviously, hopefully not, because hopefully we're first and we beat whoever's in 4th. But you know, they still have a chance of like winning the title. But would you say that their DOR has been the best DOR across the whole season? No. So I can kind of see why. I can see why they want to give it out kind of before you hit the knockouts, because it's a season long thing, isn't it? Really. So like, you know, let's talk about it from Saints' perspective. You know, we've lost 2 whole fixtures so far. Touching with 2 whole fixtures in the whole season, and obviously we've got a draw. But otherwise, like, you know, we've got more wins than everyone else. Like you said, the culture, like how many academy players are coming through, the fact that we've got players nominated for all these awards, like it is a whole kind of season thing. So I do see why they don't. Otherwise, you could get a situation of, like I said, a club that just sneaks into the top 4, even though they've maybe not been that great for 3/4 of a season, and then you'd have to give their DOR the sort of the award for that. But would that necessarily be reflective of an entire season from start to finish? So I do get it, and the awards are on June 10th, so it's actually before the semis as well. So it's like they do consider it like a regular season thing, I think, because I suppose it's the best kind of way to do it. But
so then why don't they do what they do in rugby league and give you a league winner's shield? So you finish top, you get a shield. Then like that, you deserve. Then Dowson's finished top, so fair play, he gets director of rugby.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think the League Leaders Shield detracts from the Premiership final, doesn't it? Like, that's what they want it to be. The final is the Premiership final. So by having another trophy just devalues that. But
just as a reward, just as a reward for finishing top, and then you obviously go for the big one at the end. So that's it, because that's the whole point. It's a playoff system, isn't it? You play to get in the top 4. We all know that at the start of the season, but it's just nice because just recognition that you finished top. So here's a little plate. Say, look, here you go, well done.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure I agree. I mean, I definitely don't agree with if you finish top, the DOR should be DOR of the season, because like it's just not an even playing field, and it never is. There's always one team that's better resource, or better group of players, you know, and all this sort of stuff. So, like that, if I don't know, yeah, you're Newcastle and you make the top 4 and you lose in the semi-final, that's probably almost a better achievement than winning the league with Bath. You know,
I totally agree with you.
So then, therefore, I think the DOR is such a subjective thing. It's not really results, final results driven. It's like player of the season. You know,
that's what I mean. Like you're calling it before the semis. One of those players could score 2 hat-tricks in the semi and the final, win them the trophy, and they've not even been given the best player of the city. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. Yeah. It just seems strange that you would do it before the final. It just
2 performances, though. You know, 2 performances.
No. They're not going to just be. I'm on about I'm just trying to pick someone that I won't pick someone from up the road. Just saying, Cokanasiga say he's played well all season, and then he's just has the absolute games of his life, and then Bath maybe win the league or we win the league, whatever. Like I just don't get why you would class a player of the season when the season hasn't finished.
Yeah, no, I get what you mean.
That's what I mean. I do.
I get what you mean. But then also, it's like it's not team result based, is it? That sort of stuff. You know, I guess the fact they could have such an influence in 2 games that it could swing the vote their way. So if you've got 2 players,
but say it's Tommy, and I don't know, name another player of another team, anybody. I don't know, Lawrence. Say Lawrence for Bath. They're both in it, and then one wins the final, one doesn't. You give it to the one surely if he played well and won the final. That's what I mean. Yeah. It just seems a bit early.
There's just practicalities as well, isn't it? Like there won't be anyone show up to your award ceremony because they're all off on holiday as soon as the final whistle.
Yeah, and I suppose also they kind of consider, you know, there's a reason we call it like the regular season, and then the semi-final finals like post-regular season, isn't it? Like I think they're thinking of more of, I suppose, like from their point of view, yeah, someone could come and have 2 really good performances in a semi-final and final, but should that skew
if it's close.
Is it? But yeah,
so
it's yeah,
one
yeah.
or two players that's close.
But we also might have some more. We might have some more. So like Prem Try of the season shortlist obviously isn't selected until the end of round 18. So who knows? Maybe we'll get another. We've had some insane tries, so surely we'll get someone on there.
You could probably do that
from
the Bristol game alone. You wouldn't need anybody else.
Yeah. And then they've got top try scorer is at the conclusion of round 18, but I'd be stunned if that's not Kalori at this point, just because he's already ahead. I can't see everyone catching him necessarily because they're still.
He's just had
a
few big results, hasn't he? He had a few games where he's been really big and scored big, and then he hasn't. He's not like that. Ben Cohen's scenario where he basically got one try every other game, consistently through the season. Or even he's had games where he scored like 5.
Yeah. Even Tommy this season, he's probably got to be close to. I think he is second on the list, isn't he? But like his is much more. It's not like you said. It's not skewed by one particular. Because I think Kalori got like 5 against Newcastle or Sale, or it might be both of those actually because he's done it twice.
He did it twice.
So it's kind of like I said, it's skewed by whereas Tommy actually in terms of consistency is probably better when you think of it from that kind of perspective. But yeah, it's just one of those kinds of things. But yeah, I mean, the main thing that you said, and I think looking at women's player of the season, there's Sadia Kabea from Loughborough Lightning. So we're also, being rewarded for that's England women's player of the season. So yeah, it's been a good season and it's not even finished yet. So
a lot to cheer about. But like I said, it's not finished yet. There's a big game at the weekend that they got against Gloucester. A certain C. Boyd is returning, although I'm not sure he is returning, but he might be there. I don't know.
He might be.
He'll definitely be there.
Well, he might be back in New Zealand, consulting via a laptop, but I don't know, do we? I don't know what his plans are, but I mean, they've had a big turn of form since he's been involved. There seems to be a shift in the way they're playing, a shift in their approach to things. I think they've freed up a lot of time for Skivington to do actual coaching, do the things he's good at, and there's definitely they look a better team. And Charlie Atkinson looks the player that everyone thought he could be, and he's sort of starting to deliver a lot, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, we literally know from first-hand experience what Chris Boyd can do. I mean, you can only really describe it as like magic at this point. Like how we can just turn something around. I mean, the good thing is that I think us, and I'd say this about Gloucester as well. I know they've struggled in the past few seasons, but they've got a good foundation there. And we had a good foundation there, so it wasn't like this isn't to devalue what Boyd did. It's not like he's have to work from scratch. He's understood that there are good foundations. It's just how can he get the best out of what those foundations are. So yeah, it's exciting because look, it's not our team, obviously Gloucester, but it still looks like you want this. I think I said it before, like between sort of the top 5 and the bottom 5. There is a little bit of kind of a bigger gap than you might want to see. Like I say that knowing that I think in the last round Quins beat Exeter, didn't they? So sometimes they're still kind of like fluky results, but otherwise there is a bit of a gap between kind of how well those top 5 teams are performing versus the bottom. So, with the changes to Newcastle and hopefully Boydie at Gloucester, it can help. You want the bridge to be gapped. That's not it. You want the gap to be bridged, essentially, don't you? Right? You that's what you want. You want a competitive 10-team league, and I don't know if we've quite fully had that. We've had that at the top end of the table, but I don't know if we've fully had that across the whole group of teams. So yeah, it can only be a positive, I think.
I think last 2 years ago, so there was a scenario where everyone bar Newcastle was very competitive. And it was a very tight league, but I think over the last season there has been a bit of a divide between top 5 and bottom 5 for sure. And this season, it's not as close as it has been in the previous years. I think partly that's teams are starting to learn how to win away. Our away form, for example, has been tremendous this year, whereas the years when we finished, the years we won the league, it wasn't anywhere near as good. It means there's a bit more of a divide happening because of that. But I think the foundation, like you said, the foundation is right. Like Boyd's literally gone in and he looks longer term. I think clubs that are struggling get very quickly start trying to chase easy, quick wins. And you might sign a player from here because he's got a bit of pedigree and a bit of track record. Whereas the better option is to give 50 caps to this youngster coming through, because in a year's time he'll be foreign and he'll be better for it. And you look at what they have got in terms of like Atkinson, I just said his name, the fly half. They're both called Atkinson. So there's 2 Atkinsons.
There's 2 Atkinsons.
Confused me. Yeah. was like, I met the second time I met Seb. This obviously the first time I met Charlie Atkinson. They're both two young English sort of players that really fit the mould that Boyd goes after, and you think there's a few players in that team that will develop under his sort of, like you say, just dropping a bit of magic. But it's just confidence and backing, isn't it? Will back you to make the right thing, to do the right thing.
The thing is that as well, Gloucester are quite similar to us, aren't they? They're a very big rugby town. There's not like football really anywhere near. Maybe Cheltenham Town, but it's all about the rugby. So he's probably seen that and gone, I can go in there and do similar. Whether he's not pinching our coaches though, but he looks like he's doing wonders already. And Gloucester are a good side. They're a good proper rugby town. It's a great away day. So
City,
good luck to them. It's city.
Gloucester's
Or
a city.
you say town, it's town. I know it's a city, but yeah. It's good luck to them all, but not this Saturday. That's all I say.
I think he said he mentioned when they interviewed him on the TV that there's a bit of a gentleman's agreement that he's not allowed to poach anyone from Northampton. So hopefully that's true. But yeah, he'll get a good. They've already changed their coaching structure, and he'll get that right, and he'll coach their coaches better than most, and they'll be a good side. But I think they're very different in a number of ways. I think there's what he's identified from what you hear from him is there's the way Gloucester have played. Back in the day, in front of the shed, awful pitch, absolute thugs, right? There's no way of putting it. They just sort of a proper old school dirty rugby team that would stick it up the jumper and just scrum and grind teams down and make teams a contest, right? Proper rugby, fantastic, right? But they've now got the plastic pitch, and they've got a load of youngsters coming through with a load of pace and excitement, etc. So you can't take Gloucester back to being Gloucester. I think they've got to understand what being Gloucester is, and that's a multi-year process, like it was here. But doesn't mean that they haven't had a bit of an upturn in a bit of form and a bit of initial, a bit of freshness changes form of it, doesn't it? Sometimes, but I mean, we've got to be wary of some of their backs, and if we don't go in it with the right mentality, it could well be a very close game. They could throw it around.
I mean, I've seen some discussion. I mentioned it before. Like, I do peruse like Reddit and Facebook and have a look at like comments and stuff, and there are some out there that believe like that we're gonna rest for Gloucester this weekend and then go hard at Quins. But I still think I'd flip that. I think you've got a home game. It's your send off. Hopefully we have the home semi, of course, but it's the like official, I should say, send off. Like I said, in front of a home crowd, you've still got a home semi to play for. I think this is the one I'd target and play the strongest team for personally. And I feel like that's probably what the team is going to do, because yes, you want good away form, but you also want to perform the best in front of your home fans, right? Like I said, in a sellout. But also, like I said, you really don't want to leave it to the last weekend to try and get the home semi. You want that sewn up the earliest possible opportunity. And I think because is it Leicester and whoever's fourth, like because they're 6 points away from us, like as long as we get the 5, we can't be caught in second. So even if you get second, do you know what I mean? So I think you've got to go. I'm not saying play every single one like for the full 80. If you've won the game by 60, I'd then get maybe starting to take some people off, earlier, etc., etc. But I think you've got to play your first stroke side for that, and then perhaps you think about what you want to do at Quins. I still think we work terribly with a break, so I still think some of those players you need to play, even if you sub them off a little bit earlier than you were anticipating. I still think they probably need match time. But I think Gloucester, in front of you, like I said, you sell out a home crowd, you've still got a home semi-final to play for. Don't risk leaving it till that last weekend and go whole hog.
If things go the way they should go, away form is an irrelevant factor for the rest of the season. We won't be playing an away game for the remainder of the season, other than the Quins game, which, if we win against Gloucester, is an irrelevant game anyway. Like, away form's not going to be a factor. So, like, you go full go against Gloucester, you hopefully get your 5 points, sew up the home semi-final, and then you give yourself options, don't you, for the away game? And going to Twickenham is not an away game; it's a neutral ground where form goes out the window because it's a final. So, like, the idea of going all out on the Quins game, I can't see any logic in doing that. And I know we don't play well with a break, but I think that break is away from the club. I think if you give yourself 2 weeks prep for a semi-final, so you go right, beat Gloucester, hopefully get the 5 points, confirm yourself home semi-final. It then gives you 2 weeks to prep purely for a semi-final, and you can send a team down to Quins that, players, hungry youngsters and players pushing to try and get in the first team, but you're not there. See what they can do, and then you build yourself, you set yourself the right to make sure that for that home semi-final, hopefully on a Friday night, is you're ready to peak. And so to risk taking it to the last game of the season would be madness.
But we did that to Bath, didn't we? We sent a second string to Bath and we beat them. So it's not, there's no such thing as a second string side anymore.
No, not really. No. And like I said, you mentioned that that I'm still calling it Twickenham, but Allianz Stadium. You know that it is a neutral
Twickenham.
ground. But,
it's Twickenham.
But you do come first. You still get the home dressing room, etc. You can still get yourself into thinking that it is a home fixture for you still technically, right? So like you said, I mean, I'm not saying they necessarily will feel that, but sometimes that maybe actually can contribute to confidence. Thinking, we are the home side, we've come first, etc. So yeah, I think that's also why it's really important to come first and in the league as well. And you just don't, like you said, you really don't want to leave anything like that to the last weekend. I think that's bonkers to me, like completely bonkers. So
that would be arrogant. Like, we can't do that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
It could backfire, though, couldn't it? It could backfire. If you lose to Gloucester and then lose to Quins, you could end up finishing third, and then you're going away for a semi-final. So just do the business early. It's technically the last official home game for the boys that are leaving, like George, like is it West? I'm trying to think who's going. Sam Graham. These will be the proper. It's a sellout crowd. If it's anything like the weather is now, it's going to be absolutely gleaming and boiling up. The beautiful surface. Just go and play rugby. And Gloucester, it's not going to be a 90-0 like it was a few years ago. Was it last year or the year before? I can't remember when that was.
Year before.
Yeah. So, you'd go out. You don't count your chickens, but you'd think you should. You got home advantage. Put full strength side out. Put it to bed, and like Charles said, 2 weeks to prep for the final, the semi. Sorry, not the final.
I'd love to see them. I'd love to see them try doing the pace that they did on Friday against Bristol this weekend. I think they'd all die. Like they said, it's something like, I think like 20. It's supposed to be 23 degrees, so it's a bit cooler, but that's still probably mental to play in at that level.
But if you're back your fitness, it's the way to play. Like, if you think you're fitter than the opposition, take them to places they don't want to go.
Yeah.
And if that means moving the ball and making them move more, you back your fitness, you'll beat them. It's the whole rugby in its essence is about making other players do things that they don't want to do, and that comes from various different ways of doing it. But outworking and running the team around is one of the options, isn't it? And if we think we're the fittest team in the Premier League, then the Prem, let's make them run.
I mean, I know we chuckle a little bit at Archie saying he sort of was really, really felt ill and was sort of throwing up by the scrum. But the more that the more that you, like you said, you play at that pace and for long stretches of time, like I said, the fitter and it's going to make you fitter. It's going to give you better stamina, etc. And like you said, Bristol were a bit off colour, but I think we've said it in the upcoming thing with Manny, like how many teams would have been able to keep up with that? Not many. Like our own team couldn't in certain ways. They were struggling a little bit, but imagine what other teams might feel like. So like you said, you want to get your strongest team on the pitch, try and run them around as much as you, even if you're playing against a fit side. I would still argue that your best tactic is always to run them ragged around the pitch, right? Like, it's still going to tell, surely, it's at some point.
Well, if you can make them run more than you, that's obviously always a good option. But but if you play a fast-paced game, you've also got to set the pace yourself, and so there's various different ways of doing that, isn't it?
I suppose that was the issue against Bristol, is like we probably didn't make Bristol run more than us because we just had the ball all the time and we're just running with it constantly. So that probably did contribute slightly to, like, but Parlour feeling ill and some of the others kind of, that was like relentless pace for 80 minutes. Whereas, like I said, other teams, particularly when you think about semi-finals and finals, it's probably going to be a little bit closer. They'll probably have a little bit more of the ball. It gives you, even if it gives you like you're still in defence, but it gives you maybe like a 2-minute breather from the relentlessness of sort of like running. But I suppose the difference against Bristol was because they couldn't really get hold of the ball for large periods and they weren't really doing much with it. It was, like I said, it was us that was probably outrunning them dramatically.
I mean, definitely to some extent, I think it was just general pace of the game because, I mean, traditionally, if you're defending for large spells, that's going to take its toll more than
I was about to say
than
that. I was about to
attacking.
say that. Defending's harder. It's harder without the ball, to be fair.
Yeah, because you're every man is engaged in defending, whereas in attack, and we probably don't do this. Actually, in reality, we probably have all 15 engaged in our attack. But if you're, on the wing or something, you're not necessarily running as much. If the team's got the ball, if you're trucking up the middle, the wingers are sort of having a picnic and a bit of tea or something on the sidelines, waiting for the ball to come out. So, yeah, but when you play at the pace that we play, the number of line breaks that we've made, and it made a big difference. But
and like you said, when you get to a semi-final final, this is no shade on Bristol. Like, they've been open about their kind of defensive issues, but they also just didn't defend, did they? Really? So
no.
Yeah.
Therefore, it's, us breaking the line, everyone chasing after it, and then them having to chase back. So it was just a relentless game.
Yeah, anyway, exactly. Whereas you figure, like, I don't know necessarily specific about Gloucester, but like, so when you think about like a semi-final or final, you're going to get a team that are going to defend more. So yeah, like I said, that pace then helps from that situation. Whereas for Bristol, I think it was just, funnily enough, like their lack of defence actually meant that they were just running up and down, watching us running up and down. That's what took its toll, funnily enough. But yeah, it should be hopefully a good game and a good send off, like you mentioned, like some of the players that are going.
It's another example. If we start well, if we go well to begin with, put on a decent opening score, you're asking Gloucester in what is essentially a dead game to them to dig deep and go to the well when there's nothing for them to play for. So if we can start well, start strong, put on a big score, make them run, it could end up being another big score and the end of it. But should we have some quick predictions before we get our guest on?
I'll just say one more thing. I always say to the people sitting around me, it's all on the coin toss, because we always play downhill. We always play downhill second half, and if we play first half, we always seem to not play as well. So it's always like it's on the hill. I know it's not much of a hill. It's not like Bedford, but there is a slight slant.
I think we've asked. I can't think of which player it was. I think we've asked them before about the uphill thing, and they said like you can't necessarily see it, but you can definitely feel it. So like you said that against that Bristol when they were going uphill the first half, like to put 61 points on a team and you've gone uphill, you've only really got confidence, haven't you, in the second half, because you're like, right, well, this is downhill. So, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's going to be interesting how Gloucester are feeling about it, because they're probably thinking, right, well, they've just put 90 points on a team, and the previous team they did that to happened to be us. That's probably got a feature in their minds a little bit of like, we really don't want a repeat of that, but at the same time, that form that Saints were in. And this, again, no disrespect to Gloucester, but if that Saints team show up and they play like that again, I'm not saying it necessarily be that big of a score, and I kind of hope not, because you don't necessarily love to see it, but I struggle to see how certain teams would be able to stop it. Is the reality to that.
It all depends on if they can keep it tight and make a game of it, play with pride, and try and build, because they're trying to build something new, aren't they? So they've got some energy behind them.
Yeah.
It's like you just said though a minute ago. They've got to get up for the game, because there's nothing really in it for them other than pride and probably playing next year. So it's hard to motivate yourself. So right, we better predict.
That's the coach's job this week, isn't it? How they do that for Gloucester. Yeah, definitely.
Who's at first? You're banned from Tommy. You are not having Tommy.
Going on the side, then you better pick him then.
My first.
Go for it.
Okay, right. I'll go for Tommy then. This is tough. It's going to be sunny. I'll go 56-28.
Cool. Jess.
I'm gonna take the exact score from us and Bristol at halftime, because that feels like that should have been a full-time score. So I'm gonna do the 61-14. Who should I pick?
This is also player
Pollock,
permitted. I think. Sorry, this is player permitted as well.
Yeah,
they could literally rest them all and we're screwed, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I think that, like you said, that'd be. I'm gonna go Pollock. Yeah.
I'll go 41-28. And it's a toss-up between Hendy and McParland. Which is a tough one. I will go with McParland, and I just crossed out Hendy.
The Ginger Ninja is going to get a hat trick now.
Yeah, I just crossed out his name to show
he'll get
how bad it was.
he'll get 5 to increase on his score.
Yeah, exactly.
But he still didn't get man of the match.
Anyway, let's welcome our new guest onto the show. Well, our guest onto the show. He's actually on the podcast for the second time. First person who's come back, friend of the show. So he was a member of the Saints Academy that went on to become a Prem winner in 2024. He's got 98 appearances, 20 points. Saint 2029. Manny Iyogun. So hi Manny, how you doing? Welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm doing well, thank you. Enjoying the sun.
Yeah, I was going to ask, how's it training in this heat? Going well?
It's been pretty intense, to be fair. I'm pretty lucky. Today, I didn't train, but watching the boys out there was pretty exhausting.
Yeah, a lot of hydration, even on the sidelines.
Exactly.
And I mean, you've just been in an England camp, haven't you, for last week? How was that?
Yeah, it was good. Nice to join back up with the boys. So obviously always very exciting when you get called into a camp, even if it was for 3 days, and as you can imagine, pretty intense. But I enjoyed it, and hopefully get a shout in the summer.
Yeah, fingers crossed for that. I mean, you came out unscathed, you're not any injuries or anything. You said you weren't training today, but that was just planned, was it?
Yeah, it was planned. Sort of back in the season when you've played a decent amount of minutes, you sort of just have to try and look after the body when you can. But yeah, came out unscathed. Unfortunately, some of my other teammates didn't. But it's rugby at the end of the day, so you put your bodies on the line.
Exactly. And you said there about hoping to get some minutes, sort of in the Nations Championship, what I think it's called now. I mean, is that the goal? You feel like that's a possibility at this point?
Yeah, the goal is to finish the season strong. My mind and my performance is very much focused on the end of the season. I think winning some silverware and putting in some good performances puts you in good stead to get a selection off the back of it. But yeah, I'm just excited to be back with the boys and perform well and hopefully get a party at the end of the season.
Yeah, and I mean, it's an interesting one because normally the summer tour is the summer tour, and it's a number of test matches against nations, etc. And you get a lot of new caps or a lot of new blooded players through that period. But with the introduction of the Nations Championship, what's the view from inside the camp? Is it still seen as a summer tour where there's lots of opportunities to develop and try new things, or is it now seen as a full-scale competition and it's going to be a different approach to what you'd expect?
Yeah, no, very different feel. Great question. This year, I think previously we've seen on summer tours where, yeah, you're saying like you get young and exciting players getting international experience and almost like a stepping stone into international rugby. But I think with the World Cup coming up, this is a very different feel. We're sort of playing South Africa. That will look like a World Cup game, I think, going into next year. So I think this year it's all about performance and it's all about putting out performances that are going to get England fans excited about the World Cup.
Yeah, exactly. Especially against the Box is always going to get eyes on it. And from your perspective, with that in mind, do you sort of think, well, there's a number of props in the England squad that have got runs on the board. They've got the experience in the shirt already. Do you feel that the change in the Nations Championship almost makes it harder to break down that door because those experienced players, it might be an easy decision when there's more on the line. If there was less on the line, it's an easier decision to sort of give people that opportunity?
Yeah, you're completely right. And it'd be a fool to say that it wasn't the case like that. I think international rugby is about experience. And I think you can be very talented, but at the end of the day, if you've not been in an environment where the pressure's on and you're playing high intensity rugby, you sort of need that experience. But I sort of back myself and know that I've played in high pressure games. I've played in Championship, Cup finals, and Premiership finals, and I've got that experience behind me. So I'm confident going into it that hopefully I can bring that experience alongside the likes of Genge and people like that.
Right, and I mean, I mean, this season more than any, there's been from our point of view, from the outside, etc. There's been a step up in your performances, and you seem to be playing the rugby of your life at the moment. You're looking in great shape. You're moving around. Your contributions in terms of carries and tackles and hitting ruck seems to be on the up. Is that from your perspective? You think that's the same, or do you think you're doing what you've been doing before? It's just potentially getting recognised more now.
I think it's maybe the latter, to be honest. I think it's just about time in the saddle. I think the more you play, the better you become, just from playing games, right? So I think this season I've focused on consistency about how I can make my fifth game look like my sixth game, and then just keep building improvements little by little. And I think that's maybe what you're seeing. I think sometimes in the past I've had games where I'm pretty good, or generally as a team we've had games where we're pretty good, and then the next game we've dropped off. So I think the thing that's made us and myself good this season is that we're consistently getting better performance to performance. We obviously have blips on the way. You see that blip against Leicester, but it's just about getting back onto script. And then you saw that the following week with Bristol, where we got a really good performance just by doing what we do best.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I get, so then is that what you would say your sort of your improvement at the more you play is just that consistency, or do you think there's one part of your game where you've seen a big step and a big rise? I mean, just my perception, whether it's right or not, I don't know, but I think you seem to be carrying the ball an awful lot more this season, and making a lot of dents in the attack sort of thing.
Absolutely.
That's something. Doing that?
Well, that's something that we sat down and we spoke about. What does it look like to be an international prop? What does it look like to be a world-class prop? Your set piece is fundamental. So focusing on your set piece, how destructive can you be in that? And then what's your unique selling point? And I think my unique selling point is that I can scrum, but I can also be a destructive carrier as well. And that's something that I've really focused on, something I've been training loads off the pitch. So that's something that I'm really happy that's coming through in my game. And then just tacking on the other bits in terms of just being everywhere, in terms of making tackles, getting to rucks, and then hopefully you're seeing the joining up of everything, and you're then getting good performances.
And when you make that, that decision to, really hammer home your X factor and you ball carrying, etc., how much of that is enhancing the technical skill, the way you hold the ball, your footwork, etc., and how much of that is just a mindset of like, rather than going through the motions that which might happen with some players, but of just like every time you carry the ball, trying to have an impact, is getting the mindset right every time. How much of it's technical, how much of it's desire and will, sort of thing.
That's a great question. For me, I'd say it's relatively technical. I think if you look like someone like JJ, it is very much mindset. Like he's built like a fridge freezer. He wants to run over someone, he will run over someone. Whereas I'm obviously not as big as him, so technically I have to be a bit smarter around my footwork into collision, around how I get the ball away from the opposition, how I improve my leg drive out of the contact. So those are the things that I work on, so that on a Saturday it comes naturally. And I think if you have the mindset of, oh, I'm just going to run over this person, I think things don't necessarily always work for you. You're playing against people that are internationals. You're playing against good Prem players that have played a lot of games, and they're working on the exact same things that you're working on from a tackling point of view. So technically, you have to be pretty sound to then beat people and allow you to be disruptive. And I think you look at it and you're like, oh, that's a great carry. You just physically run over him. But actually, there's 1, 2, 3 steps before that people don't necessarily see, that's been able to put you in a position to then get forward.
Yeah, really interesting. Yeah, I mean, I guess you can't be a professional rugby player and all you're thinking about is, I'm going to be fired up. You've got to get that technique in, haven't you?
100%.
You mentioned there with the scrum time and everything, and obviously being in camp and over the Six Nations and then over the 3 days this week or whatever it was. Is there a huge difference in approach between what you're trying to achieve at Saints and what the England scrum team want?
I wouldn't say so. The fundamentals of scrummaging are the same. But I think from a system point of view, you're obviously collectively coming from very different systems around the Premiership. So it's a lot about cohesion, a lot about stripping back scrums and functioning to a central system without giving too much away. So I'd say that we have a system that we scrum out with Saints, and then you then have to buy into a different system in England. And it's about the fundamentals are the same, but it's about, for example, like knowing that from in an international point of view, they're going to want to do something different. So I then have to. This is very complicated to explain without going into detail, but essentially you have to buy into a system that's the same as Joe Hayes or the same as Genji. If that makes sense.
Yeah, of course, yeah. And I mean, talking of systems and everything, obviously, I imagine you'd have had most of your career at Saints with Ferguson, and then obviously, like this season, Jacko's come in. Has that been a significant change in the way Saints are approaching scrum time, or is it just a different, approach or different view on the same concepts?
I'd say it's a different system. Jacko's a very technical coach. So was Ferg, to be honest. But he's very technical. He likes to pick on very, very small intricacies in terms of, like, for example, like your bind being a certain level, your position of your foot. So he will pick people up individually. He will speak to hookers a lot. Will speak to tight heads a lot. So in that sense, it's very different. Like, you have to be on your game from like a routine point of view, and I've learned loads from Jacko in terms of perfecting my routine. So that's, I'd say, is the biggest change for me and the scrum in general this year. And I think it's paid dividends in terms of how uniformed our performances have been over the year.
And with that, as it come, obviously JJ coming in, Ed Prowse has played a lot more in the second row. Has there been a shift from your point of view towards ensuring that scrum is a central aspect of everything Saints do as well? The launch pad, but also more of a weapon as anything?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think your scrum never lose anything by gaining someone that's 150 kilos, right? So that's been massively positive. Ed Prowse is a former tight end, so he understands. He's a big unit, and he also understands what a tight end needs. So those changes have been massive for us in terms of upskilling our second row and our back row into telling them what we need. And also, I think what's been great for us is that we have a back five that really want to scrum. And from a team point of view, we obviously know that Saints are a team that play amazing and champagne rugby, right? But people neglect the fact that from our scrum, we scored the most strike moves by far in terms of any other team. And so that's a platform that the backs really appreciate as well. So I think sometimes when you speak about Saints backs and how good they are, I think the scrum and the forwards slightly get neglected, but actually we're pretty, if I do say so myself, we're a pretty integral part of the team in terms of us scoring points.
Yeah. Hi, Manny. Welcome back on the show. Just to elaborate on what you just said with Charles there. It's like, how has your season gone this so far? And like, do you think Daniello joining has pushed you more? Because obviously he's a top international prop. Do you think he's helped you as well?
He's helped me massively. I think whenever you get a prop like Danilo coming to the team, he's incredibly fit. Technically, he's a very good scrummager. And he's just a great guy in terms of just pushing you in terms of competition. So that always makes me better. I think last season, I went through games and I played a lot, and eventually that catches up to you. I don't think any prop is able to play a 30-game season. So just in terms of sharing workload, that's helped massively. And just in terms of what I learned from him in training, he's a 60. He was telling me the other day, he's 64 cap international. So he's got tons of experience and tons of experience in an international stage. So I learned loads from him.
Yeah. So going back to All Saints, being in this like group of lads that have played together for years, coming through the academy, What is it like playing with them? Like, they're like your brothers, really, aren't they? Like, in all these amazing stadiums around Europe, it just must be special because you guys just seem to click, and you just do it on the pitch every week, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. And it's hard to describe, to be fair, to people sometimes, because I think some people in other teams, it's essentially a job, right? And you're performing and you feel that pressure. But when you're playing in a team where the boys are hanging around outside the club, and you're genuinely friends and you're laughing every day, like sometimes when the pressure comes on, that that connection is what helps and what pushes you through to get results. So it's something that we're incredibly grateful for, and it's something that we don't take very lightly. So yeah, it's a it's a privilege, right? Being at a club where you can genuinely say that your teammates, your colleagues, are your best friends. So yeah, I think that's something that you can see in our performances, and it honestly gives us that extra 10%.
Yeah, so it's very special. Yeah, talking of that, like we'll go back to Europe last year. You went to Leinster, the Aviva. No one, well, the pundits didn't give you a chance, but you went and beat them. Then you went on to the final in Cardiff. That must have been a very special occasion because I think all three of us were there. It was such an atmosphere. It's a shame we just didn't make it, but those type of games, they must be special. Like, you can remember them for the rest of your life.
Exactly. I think that run was a once in a lifetime type of run. Just from like the way that everyone wrote us off. And I think I say once in a lifetime from a point of view of like, once you do it now, there's an expectation of you now. So I think if we were to do that this year, people would be like, okay, well, it's expected. But that game at the Aviva was incredible. The ecstasy at the end, just the attitude from the boys as well going into that game when everyone had written us off. I remember the week of training, just having a bounce and a belief in the team. Just that we almost knew that we were going to win. So I think going out there and performing, and Pollock playing extremely well and staking his claim, and all the boys performing has just carried us through this season. And I think that's why you're seeing a more consistent season from us.
Yeah. Moving on, you said a special last year. You'd had a pretty decent run in this European competition too, didn't you? So
yeah.
What about the Bath game? Let's talk about that, because that was some insane rugby, and I still think we should have had that. There was a couple of decisions we didn't get, but yeah.
Yeah, it was tough. I couldn't be proud from the boys, to be honest. I think looking at that game, there's things that we could absolutely have controlled and done better. But I think from like a attitude point of view, we went out there and we scored so many points in the first half. I think we showed that when we're under pressure and our backs against the wall, that we can perform. And it's just a shame that we didn't get the result in the end.
Yeah, it was. And lastly, for me, just to talk about our recent record-breaking performance against Bristol. What was that like to play? Because that was insane, especially after the week before when we won't mention them, but the loss in the derby. Did that proper fire you guys up to put in that performance?
Yeah, I think after the derby, we weren't shy away from it. We had some pretty tough conversations from a mentality point of view going into the game. I think we can all accept losing a tight game, but to be bullied in the way that we were, it's just not our standard, and it's not what we represent, and it's not how we want to represent the shirt. So I think we had some pretty honest and tough conversations on Monday. We trained like we never have on the Tuesday going into the Bristol week, and then you saw a performance on Saturday, I think it was, or Friday, sorry, that demonstrated how clinical we wanted to be. We spoke a lot about saying things and not doing them. So I think that game showed that when we're on and we're focused and we do it for 80 minutes, that's a result you get. And Bristol a class outfit, and it's no disrespect to Bristol, but I think going into that game we had a mindset of relentlessness, and I think that showed in the score.
It did indeed. I don't think anyone would have beaten you that night. You guys were just, you on another level, another planet. It was just amazing rugby, and thank you for doing that, because it was a joy to watch.
And I just piggyback a little bit on that Bristol game. I think it was McParland after me said that the pace was, that he said relentless. He said the pace was so relentless that he felt ill. What was it like from your perspective, playing in a game that really just was non-stop for 80 minutes, like to an extreme level?
Yeah, I think Archie was being pretty honest when he said he felt ill, because I think he threw up in the game, to be honest. I don't know if anyone's seen the clip. I'm pretty, I can share Archie's sentiment. I felt the exact same, to be honest, as a prop, running around the place, getting up from scrums and having to run, and then seeing that we've scored. So yeah, it was intense from a conditioning point of view. We obviously we base our game on hustling and running for each other. So if you do that and you do that for 80 minutes in a game that has that many points, it's pretty tough. But it's a toughness that you enjoy, especially being on the winning end of that. So yeah, it was tough, but I enjoyed it.
And what was it like? I think the three of us have said before on the podcast that there's, it's obviously great no matter what day it is that you play, but there's something really kind of unique about a Friday night game, like a Friday night under lights that everyone's getting ready, for the weekend. What is it like to play in that kind of atmosphere that's just consistently, obviously, like lots of cheering, loud, lots of things to celebrate?
I honestly don't know how to explain it. It's just magic. Like, I think on a Friday, everyone's obviously finished work. Most people have finished work for the week, and they just bring a different energy, and you can just see that, and it just feeds into the team. And I feel like on a Friday, like the boys are just on a different level. So yeah, just from a personal point, like the atmosphere, going out when it's a bit darker and the fireworks are shooting, it just gives you that sort of rush of adrenaline that fuels your performance. So yeah, it's properly special. The boys obviously always look forward to Friday night games. But yeah, properly special.
And sort of thinking ahead to that the business end now, sort of as of the season, being able to kind of get a win over Bristol, which has actually eluded us home and away for the past couple of seasons, did that kind of factor into discussions like pre and post match about how important it was to kind of get that victory over Bristol in particular?
Yeah, I think Bristol sometimes are a boogeyman team, and we saw when we played them away. They were one of our only losses in terms of this season. It's obviously something we speak about, but it's not something that we give voice to too much. I think our rhetoric was we'd secured a semi-final. So from the outside looking in, right, like what did we have to play for? A home semi-final? That's pretty fair, but Bristol had to essentially win this game to make their hopes of top four alive. So we were just speaking about how when you have nothing to play for, quote unquote, what does that do to your mentality? Are you a team that then just gives up, or are you a team that actually you care about your fans, you care about your performance, regardless of what's on the line? And I think that's something that we took into the game.
And what's the kind of the talk at halftime? Because obviously I think it was 61-14, wasn't it, at halftime? Were there any kind of discussions about keeping that mentality in the second half, perhaps, and understanding that sometimes drop-offs can happen in games like that when you kind of have put a team to bed? But was it something perhaps at halftime where you really wanted to emphasize, we want to keep that going for the full 80 minutes, not just the first 40?
Yeah, look, we always want a performance, and it's all good, well and good being up 61 points, but that there is essentially you're essentially practicing for games where there's a score in the game, and so that's fine being up by 61 points, but you then go into the second half and it's essentially practice for games in which you're going to have to be in and around it. And so I think us as a team, we understand that we're going to be on the back of Haydn's in the future, and we've been on the back of Haydn's in the past, right? But understanding that if you truly want to be a great team, you have to turn up for 80 minutes. You're going to have drop-offs, and I think that's what we saw. We saw a team that wanted to be on it for 80 minutes, and regardless of the score, we focused on the performance, and that's what you get.
And how are you feeling, thinking this weekend with the Gloucester game? What's the mood in camp around that game? Obviously, there is still, like you mentioned a minute ago, there is still a home semi-final to play for. And I think, I don't exactly say I'm a mass aficionado, but I think a 5-pointer does allow us to get either first or second. So is that something that you kind of specifically discuss, or do you approach the game the same way as you kind of approach all of the others? Is it just a case of going out there, putting the performance on the pitch?
We just speak about performance, to be honest, and I think this game we spoke a lot about how it's emotionally tied, and this is going to be the last game for a lot of legends essentially of the game. People like Ferbs, George Furbank, James Ram, Tom West, people that have contributed so much to this club. Their last opportunity to play at Franklin's Gardens before they go to different clubs next season. So that emotional sentiment, and actually you're talking about closeness of the squad, like playing for your teammates and making sure that that last memory is a good memory. And that's something that we hold very dearly to us and we don't take for granted. Because as a player, like I know it's very easy to remember games that you've won. I think your brains are very good at attaching elation to a game. So like you talk about Aviva, you talk about the final. Like I remember those games, and I think it's what a gift to players like James Ram and George to tie the last game at the Franklin's Gardens to a really monumental win. So that's the emotion going into the game, and that's what's going to drive us through.
And is that something that you'll kind of, I mean, it sounds like an obvious question, but is that something that you'll carry through sort of the further you progress? Obviously, we do have a semi-final coming up, and then obviously hopefully a round after that. Do you always keep that kind of emotional tie as part of it? Because obviously think back to 2024 when we last lifted the trophy. Obviously, it was Courtney Laws, Lewis Southern, Alex Waller, for example, retirees, people moving on. And they spoke about kind of the emotional core of the team. Is that the same thing that you think will kind of help you and bolster you as you get, towards those semi-finals and finals, hopefully?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we can't underestimate how much of a diamond that is in terms of a motivating factor for the boys. We value this group so highly. It's one of our biggest assets. So boys leaving and wanting to finish that with essentially a happily ever after is so special for us. And I think that's something that we saw in 2024 and how that ended. So fingers crossed we can do that again.
And how much does the discussion of, you mentioned the quarterfinal against Bath, but how much does, the discussion of the Prem is, the one chance at silverware after, obviously losing in that fixture, how much does that also kind of does that add pressure, or is it just something that, again, you just kind of bolsters kind of the connectivity of the team to think this is our shot to lift something this year, so let's go at it?
I think it's silently in the back of everyone's head. That's not something that's mentioned a lot, because I think when you start speaking about silverware, you end up getting ahead of yourself and you end up tripping up. So I think what we focus on is performances. We focus on training. We focus on what we can control, essentially, right? And sometimes if you get performance with a sprinkle of luck, you end up getting there. So yeah, that's all we focus on. We focus on having fun, performing, training well, and then everything that comes with that comes with that.
And you mentioned that you focus on having fun. Obviously, we can see it in terms of behind the scenes snippets of lads together and sort of videos and things. But how much do you really feel that, like, when you're on the pitch? So, for example, the fixture against Bristol, that just looked like, except for McParland and others being being sick, like, on the pitch or whatever, but for the rest of it just looked like you were having like the time of your life, like, for 80 minutes. And does it really feel like that in the moment, that you actually are just having, obviously you want to go out and win a fixture, but how much does this is actually really fun also kind of factor into how you feel on the day?
Yeah, massively. It makes everything hurt less, right? Like if you're having fun and you're focused on if you're celebrating, you're focused on the positives, then you're not worrying about how hard you're breathing or how hard you're working, right? Like defensive sets feel easier. You're getting pats on the bum because you're making big shots. Like everything is better. So that's a massive, massive thing for us. If you enjoy your work, you never work a day in your life, right? So I think that's something that carries through and rings true for us as a team when we play.
Yeah, and I think we've mentioned it before, but I think Douse, after that Leinster game, had mentioned, that Leinster, I think it was about Leinster specifically, but like saying that they're not like us, and they mentioned, kind of the chemistry, the connectivity. Is that something that you notice, like from the top down? Like we've seen that we kind of get the impression that Vesti's like a little kid having the time of his life as well when he coaches. But how much does that come from top down? So not just the chemistry between, players who are best friends, but how much is that also pushed forward by, the guys at the top?
Yeah, massively. Vesti loves his job. All the coaching staff love their jobs. And you'd be able to see it because obviously it's very important to everyone in the organization. But it makes us robust and almost a bit bulletproof in terms of like when things go wrong or when you get a bad performance, you don't get people turning on each other. You don't get coaches where you can sense their stress and it feeds into the team. It almost brings you closer. You solve problems and then you move on. Whereas I think with organizations where people aren't that invested in what they do or they're stressed, like there's a sort of like a likelihood of them blaming other people and you get cracks essentially, right? So we've got coaching staff that love doing their job. You can genuinely tell that Vesti loves what he does on a daily basis. So yeah, it's just that connection in the coaching group feeds into the connection around the players as well.
Yeah. And then I just want to quickly touch on a bit more about, I know I asked you about this last time about kind of outside the game, and I think where you were last time is you were working towards a degree, and I think since then you've also been elected to the RPA board. Like what kind of kind of things are you up to kind of outside of the game at the moment?
Yeah, I've been elected to the RPA board, which has been pretty interesting. So development of the game and trying to help with player welfare, and that's been massively interesting to sort of sit in board meetings and actually try and contribute to the game and make changes. And that's been great for my personal development in terms of linking up with our personal development officer, who's Jamie Bethel, and just trying to make the lads' lives easier, right? I've been doing a bit of mechanics, so I've passed my mechanics course. So if you need an MOT done, give me a shout. But apart from that, just keeping busy, just keeping up with my hobbies, seeing friends, family. Yeah, not too much.
And how much time do you spend? Obviously, like you mentioned that your colleagues actually are your best friends. Is there a kind of a particular group that you hang out with outside? Like, how often do you see them? Is it something where you are best friends, but maybe you've gotten a little bit sick of them, having seen them all week, or do you just always want to be with them?
To be fair, we always want to be together. We say that we get sick of each other, but we end up spending time together all the time. So, I hang out. To be fair, like there's not really cliques at the club. Everyone hangs out with everyone. I think that's the best thing about it is that you can just drop into any sort of group at any point, and it's just completely fine. So yeah.
Yeah, great. Charles, do you have a question?
You said there about pitching for some work for MOTs in the amongst the team, etc. Who's got the best car?
Oh, great question. Do you know what's funny? Maybe not in the team, but coach and staff. Head of S&C, Tommy Buller. He's gonna hate me for mentioning this, but he's got a pretty nice car. It doesn't really compete with anyone else's, but he's got an RS6, which is very, very nice. He's not let me drive it yet, so that's why I've put him in the mud there. But other than that, part of the team, who's got the best car? Pollock's got a pretty nice car. It's got a blacked out Defender, as you can expect. Flashiest car in the car parking lot. Everyone else is pretty humble.
It's generally poor game across the board. Everyone's saving the pennies out there. There's no
exactly.
Apart from John, so I think you've got the last question.
Yeah, as that's one question. I did ask you the normal question, but this one will be: if you could bring any player to the Saints right now, just to help improve the team, who would you bring?
This is a trick question, you see. I couldn't even tell you. I wouldn't change anyone, to be honest. No, I'm friend.
You don't have to change anyone. Just bring someone just to help, just to improve.
There's too much chemistry.
There's just too much choice, to be honest with you.
That's fine. No, that's fine. That's the
if you rephrase it, then so it's not if you could pick a player from history to come into the current side.
Okay. I have to pick my favourite player because it would be unbelievable to play with him. Just watching him play is a bit of a weird shout, to be honest, but Louis Picamoles.
Oh wow!
What a player!
Yeah.
There was no
niche one.
Was there no overlap when he was at the club? Were you a bit after that? Were you?
Oh yeah, I was. Yeah, I was a bit after that, but it would have been sensational.
just one season we had him, didn't we? He was absolutely insane. He carried the team. Yeah. He was just unbelievable.
Yeah, he was.
Well, the
but at least we can say that you're loyal though to the rest of your team. You wouldn't swap anyone out.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. There you go.
Yeah. Bring him in to replace Sam as he leaves. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Brilliant, Manny. Thanks for coming on. That's been a real treat to talk to you. So thanks a lot, and thanks everyone else at home for listening. Hopefully you enjoyed that as much as we did. That was top draw. So thanks very much.
Thank you, mate.
Cheers. Take care.